Thank you, everybody. It is Monday, September 16th, and this is the special and regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. It is about 6 p.m., so we can call the meeting to order. And roll call, please.
Director Oglesby?
No.
Director Adams?
Here.
Director Eisenhart?
Here.
Director Edwards?
Here.
Vice Chair Riley?
Here.
Chair Anderson?
Here.
And Director Paul is online requesting to be attending by Zoom due to illness.
Because she's ill, right. Thank you. All right, join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now it's time for oral communications. Anyone wishing to address the board on the consent calendar or informational items, closed session items, matters that are not listed on the agenda can do so only during oral communications. And anyone that has a comment, please limit your time to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, my name is Rick Hoyer. I'm president of the Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association. You have an item on the agenda late this evening to get briefed. What I'm here to do is to urge you to stop spending taxpayer money fighting a lawsuit that you've already lost 3 times on. Lower court ruled against you. You asked for reconsideration of that to the lower court. They turned you down. Court of Appeals turned you down and ruled in a week when they had 90 days to actually do the ruling. It's been very clear cut, every ruling. You should have sunset the ordinance, which is what your ordinance said you needed to do when you started collecting the other water fee. Please stop wasting any more taxpayers' money and now focus on how you're going to refund to the taxpayers the money that's been collected when you no longer had the right to be collecting it, some of which has been sequestered. We're happy to meet with anyone and figure out ways to help you get that done, but please stop wasting taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyer.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. What I'd like to address is the lack of trust from you board members when it was promised by the general manager in spades that the water supply charge would be sunsetted at the time you got the surcharge on the Cal-Am water bills. This was not done. Fortunately, Mr. Stolt is not here, but it was his promise that this would be done, and it was not done. Some of you were not around when he made that promise. I was here. And while he's a graduate of the same university I'm a graduate of, he's a couple generations after me. We used to have something when you gave your word that you were going to do it, you did it. But he broke his trust with the people and the taxpayers of this peninsula. And it's time for the board to jump in and take action where action needs to be taken. So I urge you to follow up with what President Hoyer said and taking action tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alley. Are there any more comments? Sarah?
Yes, I have Melody Chrislock. Melody, when you're ready.
Melody Chrislock, Public Water Now. I would like to know when the Taxpayers Association is going to stop wasting taxpayer money. You won, you get the deal, they're going to stop collecting it, but now you've got another lawsuit. And I mean, you're wasting our money because they have to spend all this legal money to fight you. So can you just get over it? You're done, you won, and stop wasting everybody's money and time. Thank you.
Chair Anderson, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you. So now we're on to the consent calendar. And are there any items that anybody would like to pull for further consideration?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, let me ask if,
Wait, are we gonna have an arm wrestle? Who seconded first?
no.
You can have it.
I see.
Wasn't me.
But I'm going to ask if there are any comments by the public on the consent calendar. Anyone from the public want to pull something? Nope. All right, we have a motion. Let's have a vote.
Director Oglesby?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Paul? Director Paul?
Yes.
Director Eisenhart?
Aye.
Director Edwards?
Aye.
Vice Chair Riley?
Aye.
Chair Anderson?
Yes,
Consent calendar is approved 7-0.
thank you. The next is a presentation on the GIS projects. You're
Good
giving that-
evening, Chair, members of the board. This is a report on the district's GIS database projects. And if you may recall, this was a request that came when we were renewing the contract with Links Technologies during the budget. I'll provide a brief introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Kelleher, who is here, our GIS consultant. And in terms of the overview, I'll just say that what we are trying to do here is move away from data silos to a centralized database where we can retrieve quality information, edit that information, and then make that information available in the form of dashboards. And we are using the ArcGIS portal for this exercise because it has the ability to provide dynamic visual information based on which portion of the map you're looking at. And eventually, these databases will be integrated with other tools where staff can actually go out on the field, look at their tablet, see this data, and edit and provide information to the property owner if needed. So right now, I think you'll see 4 main databases that we have. One's a parcel information database that's used for permitting. Then we have a wells location and production database and a billing database. And these are all internal at this point, and we intend to have a follow-up discussion on the use of this data eventually. And then the idea here is that good data can lead to good decisions and efficient operations. And this also showcases that the district is having the systems and has the organizational capacity to take on, be a full-fledged utility if it needs to. So for instance, the same ArcGIS portal can also be used in tracking assets, the condition of those assets, which would lead into capital planning and capital budgeting eventually. So with that, I'll turn it to Patrick. Take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, board members, for inviting me here to do this presentation. We're going to focus on a demonstration of different applications that staff has built over the last couple of years. Before I get into that, a little intro. Who I am, a little bit of history, and what I see my role is here. We're a small company out of Capitola. I have a staff of 6 other GIS professionals that I work with. We've been in business for 34 years now, and we work primarily with local agencies throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. We started working for the district in 2016, and at that time was right when Eric Sandoval left, and I was asked to evaluate the GIS that he had been developing for some time. And I think since that time, we've accomplished probably 4 major things. we took what was traditionally a file-based system and put it into a central relational database management system based on SQL Server. We upgraded the Esri license to what's called a site license or enterprise agreement, which gave you a whole host of additional tools and resources that virtually every staff can use. We also completed the integration of your Acela permitting system with GIS. I forgot what the fourth thing was. Oh, and we, as Michelle said, we implemented the ArcGIS Enterprise Stack, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Excellent. So, what is ArcGIS Enterprise? There are four critical software pieces. The portal itself, you can kind of think of that as SharePoint on steroids. There's an underlying ArcGIS server engine, which effectively takes database information and converts it to web-enabled web services that can then be used by the portal application. There is also the data store, which is, as Nichelle mentioned, a series of databases that warehouse that information. And then there are these web adapters, which essentially act as a proxy. If you could do the next slide. This is much more detailed than you want to know, but this is, I think, serves two messages. One is that as a board, a district, you have invested a significant amount of resources, both in terms of hardware, software, people, dollars, and in the deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise. So each one of those components has a dedicated server, which is shown in this slide. But the second takeaway is that it is highly secure. Everything that you see below those two orange bars is behind a system firewall. So there is no data, there is no software exposed to the outside world, except through a single web server and only through two ports. So it's a very highly secure environment. Next slide. The database itself, you can see, I think the takeaway here is at this point, we have incorporated over 200 layers of information from various resources. And that number is actually low. It's actually closer to about 300 at this point. Next slide. Ultimately, we anticipate developing data applications and services or content for all the different divisions that make up the district. In a little bit more detail, the database, as Nichelle said, is actually spread out across several different relational databases. And that second tier, the application, illustrates some of the different software components that we use to integrate with that database or those databases. One of them, you can see that Acela has a specific database that it serves to integrate with its permitting system. All of these databases are integrated. The authoritative data on the far left is synchronized with all of the other databases that it comprises. One of the things that we do is that we manage what we call the APO data, the address, parcel, and ownership information. You guys have an agreement with the county, and every 30 days, my staff does the research required to make sure that that data is updated. So it is fresh, and you'll see in our demo that I think it was refreshed on Friday. Okay, fun part. different applications that different staff people have developed over the last couple of years. And one of them may be evolved. So this is
Patrick, maybe you can put the laptop on there.
on the podium.
Yeah. If there's space. Or maybe not. Never mind if you can't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not loud enough, just tell me.
You're gonna have to use the microphone.
I am. This one.
The whole thing.
Take over. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Not Sarah.
Okay, this is the front end of the
I know
portal.
her name.
And
Say it.
at the moment, only internal staff see this. We can expose data to the public, but that will be determined by board action or by people beyond the vote. So I want to start with a simple application and then get fancier. So this was one that we developed quite a while ago. And it was for the permit center, and there we just wanted to answer a basic question. If I give you my address, what administrative districts do I live in? Or so I can put in an address, finds a search thing. So, and it returns 5 results. So I mean, this particular address is in the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. It is in the Mount Paso Entitlement District. And these are the other. Um,
Or if you just want to focus on a video.
Yeah, we'll get there. So the idea here, though, is that this is a data-centric response, but behind the scenes, it is actually doing what's called a spatial intersection of additional layers that are behind the scenes and returning that result. This isn't in a canned, pop it up and provide these attributes. It's a fairly simple app, but it answers the question, what districts do I live in? This next one is also data centric, but it is cool. Maureen developed this.
Yay, Maureen.
And I think it's fantastic. It is also data centric, but the idea is this is the ASR data presented in a fairly sophisticated dashboard, and all these different pieces are related to each other. So if I go up here and I say, I only want to look at the last 10 years, 14 years, all of these different pieces of information are automatically updated. And I can drill down further. I can look at the data based on each individual ASR site. Down here, I can look at it based on its well or based on its year. This is available to anybody and everybody. I think the target audience here is ultimately Dave, but it's out there. It doesn't require a whole lot of learning to take advantage of. Third app is more map centric, interactive map that allows me, an end user, to look at parcels and wells, interact with the layers. So if I only want to look at private wells, I can turn off those wells. And as I zoom in, now I get the parcels. So now I can see where those wells sit on the land. Also, I can click on any of those wells. And a wealth of information integrated from various different tables warehoused in that wells database is available with simply a click. Now this, you'll see here, this information, this is something that John Lear is working on now, where this data, you can see it's the well report. There's just simply a reference to a space on your file share. This data ultimately is going to go into your document management system, DocuWare, and then there'll be a hyperlink that will actually bring up that image by just clicking on that link. So that's a project that's slotted for 2025. Now you can also, each of these numbers represent the actual situs address for that property. And if I click on that property, I will also get the assessor's information for that property. Again, this is internal only. What we expose to the public is going to be up to you, and what fields would be exposed to the public will also be determined by management. But here's one, oops, trick I just did. You can see the import date was the last date of the assessor's roll. So last update was last Friday. You also have access to a parcel report. That parcel report actually reaches out to the county's database and returns a PDF document. We'll see in a second, it's a little sluggish. Very sluggish. Some of this, I think it's because it's doing. Okay, so here's a mashup of the parcel and about 100-foot buffer, and all the information that's at the county planning office. And this you can take home with you.
So does the county have the same system, or does the county just have Excella and that's where it interfaces?
No, good question. The county does have ArcGIS Enterprise as well. And they actually provide their data as a resource that could be shared within the district. So they actually they provide the URLs, and somebody from within the district could just grab that and add that to one of these maps. So what I did in this case was I used one of their apps from that resource to say, oh, go build me your report for this particular parcel. So I didn't have to do anything other than create a link. But they do also have the ArcGIS Enterprise environment.
Thank you.
Okay. The last one is the date. Actually, the second to last. How many more time? Okay, this is from what I heard earlier is a little bit of a bomb. So this is your water supply charge. So this is again an interactive map-centric tool that provides a map that you can interact with and analytics that summarize the content about a specific layer, in this case, the water supply charge. And the green are the folks that paid, and the gray are the folks that did not pay. At the top, it shows you how much was taken in within the district for the last calendar year and the total number of parcels that were assessed a fee. These next three describe within the map area how much money was collected within a given map area, as well as how many parcels were assessed and how many weren't. And at the bottom, it shows you the distribution of monies based on their meter size. And on the left-hand side, it gives you a quick summary by parcel owner and the amount that they paid. If I click on any one of those, it will take me to that parcel, and I can actually look at the details of how they paid, as well as some of their assessed valuation. I can also look at that data in a table or another chart that just summarizes their land and assessed value. The point is not so much this specific application as much as what virtually any staff member could build on their own. I'm an administrator of your system, but the idea is that this provides the tools for virtually anybody in the organization to build for their own business requirements. So that's the end of the demo. I'll leave you with one last slide. We stop sharing. So this is a summary of the current projects and ongoing projects and the various staff members that are in charge of that project. And then any questions?
Chair.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Good presentation. I'm glad you showed me that last one on water supply. Is that one ready to go?
Well, it actually is, and without taking it too far, potentially it could be used as a resource to track the rebates.
That's why I'm asking that. And how far back will that go?
Well, it was updated so that it is current for all owners and all fees through the assessed 2023 tax year.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your presentation. Now I know the money is going to good use. So it might be more questions, but I think,
Yes, I think we do have another.
yeah, they're not gonna let you off the hook.
Question through the chair. What's the timing for kind of wrapping it up so it's all implemented?
You never use the words finished in this business. You just don't.
What is all implemented? I'm sorry.
No, there's several places in process. And so that's what I was asking.
So it would be difficult at this point for me to give you a fixed date on a lot of these in-process projects. What you saw with ASR, for example, I think there is a certain amount of vetting of the data that we're still discovering. What you don't see with that ASR application, for example, is that the process of trying to herd cats, if you will, collect data from hundreds, but tens of different spreadsheets and put that into a dashboard. Maureen is accomplished, but every time you kind of lift the lid, you find another thing where you say something's wrong and you have to fix it. So to an extent, we will release these different applications in sort of a stepwise fashion.
That was my next question. I assume it's going to be in a step.
Yeah, and it will always be massaged. The more feedback we can get to make it better, that's the part where you never say it's over or finished. I think what's exciting for us is what's coming up next. Ultimately, we want to be able to create content that we can serve to communicate to the public.
We had an earlier presentation. It was about 3 months ago, I think, where we were getting a preview of what the database is going to be able to show us and so on, which is very interesting. Very exciting to see it going forward.
Good question.
Exciting. Good word. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Riley, to your question, some of these projects might be substantially complete in a year's time frame. And yes, there's going to be continuous updates, but that's the current target as of now.
Well, I think the prior discussion was around the website and what might be linked to what, when. I mean, it's all those kind of when questions as well. And so I can see it being, like he said, a step fashion. Anyway, that's good.
Right. So General Manager's report.
Good evening, General Manager. If someone didn't notice, he is not in attendance. And so we don't have a report for this evening, but for the next board meeting on October 21st, we'll have 3 reports. One, an update on the water supply projects. Second, an update on the water allocation process. And then the regular status report on CalAM's compliance with the State Water Resources Control Board and the Seaside Groundwater Basin adjudication decision. So that's for next time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just one question, since we have the district engineer here tonight, ASR, are we going to be on time? Or do we have a problem with that? Because I read reports of it's going to start raining here soon. So are we going to be ready in December or are we a little bit behind?
We will be ready.
Come on up, so put you on the record.
We will be ready, definitely. We'll schedule a meeting with Caroline. We can't inject until December 1st. And it takes several inches, I want to say on the order of, I hope John and Thomas will jump in, on the order of 6 to 7 inches to fill that dam, so it spills. And then when we have enough flow and the biologists have gone through the river to make sure that the fish have passage, then we can inject. So even if we get like 2 inches tomorrow, we wouldn't be allowed
Right,
to.
and I understand that, but I just want to make sure that we are ready to go instead of hearing, we got a problem come December. So now's the time to start boom, boom, boom.
Absolutely.
So beating people over the head. Let's go. Thank
Got
you. That's all I had, Chair.
Violence of this board.
Yeah, violence. Any other questions? All right, we're ready for our report from the district council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have David Laredo here. I'd like to direct you to page 27 of your packet. That is our written report. I want to remind you that we do have a closed session after this regular meeting to discuss the MPTA decision and the district options there. So we'll be brief on that, but I'll turn it over to David Laredo, lead general counsel for this.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Pleasure to be here. Mr. Laredo mentioned that you have a general report on status of pending litigation. The date of that is September 11, which also happened to be the same date that the Court of Appeal filed its decision in the MPTA case that Mr. Hoyer and Mr. Raleigh were referring to earlier. So I'm going to run through the memo. The MPTA, Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association, has filed in all 6 different lawsuits against the district. The very first one, that case was resolved in the district's favor. The other 5 are still pending. It's the second case that was then heard by the district Court of Appeal. Oral arguments were held on September 5th. And although the court could have taken 90 days, the court did issue its decision in an unpublished decision on December 11th. The district's contention was that this case should have been resolved under validation statutes, and that there was a tight time period for validation to be filed. And the court did not accept that and decided this case on a non-validation basis based upon the ordinance itself on the sunset clause. MPTA did prevail, the district did not. This case technically is still with the appellate court, and there are some procedural elements that need to be contemplated, and we'll discuss that in closed session. Eventually, if the court does not modify its opinion, it will then go back to the trial court for implementation. The other pending Monterey Peninsula Taxpayer Association cases were all filed under the assumption that the district's validation argument might have prevailed, and the Taxpayers Association filed those successive cases alleging validation causes of action, and then they added to that in later cases a class action and a reverse validation action. And the reason they kept on filing was that each case put into play another year of collection of the fee. So these issues will go back to the trial court for resolution, and we'll have more clarity there unless the appellate court will modify its decision. So that's a matter still under review, and we'll have better clarity, and we'll go into closed session and we'll discuss some Another matter that is pending litigation, CalAm's Monterey Division of Supply Facilities. CalAm did file a demur to the district's complaint, and that was heard. A second hearing on the demur was heard before Judge Vallarta on August 23rd. Judge Vallarta did issue a tentative ruling indicating her intention to rule in favor of the district. After oral argument on that second hearing, the judge took the matter under submission. Her statements from the bench indicated her intent to provide a revised final order that was likely to align with her prior tentative ruling. That revised order has not yet been seen. I would expect that that will come in another week or two. So hurry up and wait. The district did file an action against the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, to challenge LAFCO's hearing and decision regarding the district's exercise of powers to acquire the CalAm system. On December 7th of 2023, Judge Wills ruled in favor of the district against LAFCO, and the matter is on appeal. LAFCO has filed for the appeal, joined by CalAm. The matter has not yet been briefed, and oral argument will not be set until after that. And that is pending at the moment. The next item of pending litigation has to do with the Coastal Commission's issuance of a coastal development permit to CalAm with respect to CalAm's proposed desalination project. The city of Marina is the lead named plaintiff. The Water Management District is joined in that, along with Marina Coast Water District and the Marina Coast Groundwater Sustainability Agency. The administrative record was lodged in May. Petitions and petitioners filed opening briefs in July, and opposition briefs have now been filed in September. And where we are is reply briefs are to be filed by the end of this month. A hearing on the merits is on calendar before the court. Judge Wills will be hearing that case in Department 15, and the calendar for the hearing on that is November 13th. Keeping in mind that court dates are always subject to change. There are matters listed in your pending litigation also that are pending before the Public Utilities Commission. The first is the amended water purchase agreement with CalAm dealing with the Pure Water Monterey and its expansion. The briefs have been filed by all parties and are now there are ex parte meetings with staff of commissioners to review their understanding of the issues pertaining to a proposed decision. A deadline for an order on that has been extended to the end of this year, 12/31. Another matter before the Public Utilities Commission is CalAm's 2022 general rate case. The Public Utilities Commission has a triennial sequence where the PUC approves rates and charges imposed by CalAm. That case has been assigned to a new commissioner in April. A proposed decision has been issued by the ALJ Rambo that partially accepts and partially rejects proposed settlements by CalAm and the Public Advocate's Office. Action is on the proposed decision is expected later this calendar year. An order extending the statutory deadline in this case now extends the deadline to adopt that decision to March of 2025. The district just filed today its comments on the proposed decision, and CalAm did as well. And so now the matter wise with the commissioner, I'm sorry, with the ALJ in first instance, and then eventually the commission. And I anticipate that that will take some time yet before we hear from the commission on that. The last item before the commission is the rulemaking on new acquisitions by all public utilities. That evidentiary hearing is closed. We are all waiting a proposed decision to be issued by the assigned and that order extending the deadline memo of threatened matters of litigation. One is Cal-Am's threat of litigation against the Water Management District and Monterey One Water. And this is a threat of breach of contract related to the Aquifer Storage Recovery Agreement and to the status of ASR wells. There's no new information there. The parties have been working to try to resolve. They have, by way of a physical solution, we've had 7 consecutive agreements extending the deadlines. Cal-Am's most recent comment is that they've been working, and this is a comment to the Public Utilities Commission, is that they've been working diligently to address the extraction and injection concerns concerning the ASR4. And that they don't expect that to be resolved for several months, perhaps up to a year. But Cal-Am has made threat of litigation to the district, and that's why it's listed here. And the last item on your list of pending and threatened litigation is the Sierra Club's action. So whereby they're threatening to reopen an appeal that has been closed. And this was the threat was made in a letter from the Sierra Club attorney, Larry Silver, on July 24th of 2024. And we have reviewed that, we've responded, and we have not heard back from the Sierra Club's counsel on that. But I believe it's prudent to continue to list this as a threatened matter, but no action has been taken by them. And we don't propose that any effort be made by the district until we've heard more from this year. That concludes my public report on this. And if there are no questions at this time, we'll be talking more about some of these matters in closed session this evening.
Any questions at this time?
No, just another, thank you, Mr. Laredo, for getting this report in the agenda.
Thank you.
A lot of people love to read this report. So I want to thank you both again for doing it for the public and getting it in there.
It is ironic. Some of these things happen with such a long time step, months, years, and then invariably this report's dated September 11, and that's exactly the date that the
Some changes have been made.
came out.
So as soon as you put pen to paper, it becomes outdated. So thank you for your.
One comment from.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say quickly, thank you. Well done report. Really appreciate it. Like Director Edwards said about being in the document itself, but an excellent presentation of walking us through what it says on the paper.
Yeah,
I think that, and I think that's important for those that's listening and watching.
Thank you much.
Quick question
Yes.
to the chair. The MPTA series of lawsuits that are still pending. I didn't know what you said in public, but I didn't know whether this is a closed session issue. But my question is simply, what's the relationship of the existing decision and the pending other potential lawsuits?
That is a topic for closed session.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Later this evening. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, now we are to director's reports. Did anybody Want to make a report on a trip or a conference or a meeting or something you attended?
Thank you, Chair. No trips or meetings that I did attend or listen to was the water allocation meeting that they had on September the 12th. The general manager and Stephanie of Water Demand gave us some on water allocation, how that is going to take place, explaining to the cities how that's going to take place. So they did an outstanding job. All the cities basically was there. We had mayors, city managers, attorneys, all attending that one meeting. And to me, that's good because they're getting a basic understanding of what the presentation is going to be like when the GM go around to each city and tell them. So I want to thank them again, GM and Stephanie and the Water Demand Division for an outstanding presentation on water allocation workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with that. I was watching that as well. And it was very interesting and it's complicated, as we know. It's very complicated. And complicated to understand the layers of information that are involved because of the way the arena numbers and the housing numbers work. That was pretty mind-blowing to people to hear the first time. We've been sitting on it for a little while. So I agree, that was very interesting.
Just a quick comment as well. I have the PowerPoint from the report, and it was so easy to follow through.
Right.
With the general manager, just going through step by step, and I found it really, really helpful.
I agree. Anybody else?
Yes, through the chair.
Yes.
I attended the water allocation presentation as well. I agree with what's been said, that it was very well done. And although I couldn't hear all the questions and comments from the attendees, I heard enough to get the impression that they followed, although as you said, as many of you said, it's complicated, but people were following and appreciated that we'll have an interest in coming together to get the CDO lifted when the water supply, the new water supply is actually available. So I think that was a very productive meeting. And I'll just add to that, that a couple of weeks before that, I went to the Pacific Grove City Council meeting just to give a very brief heads up that this meeting was happening. The city manager, of course, knew because he'd been invited. I didn't know if the council members were aware or not, but I just mentioned that this was happening and that the lifting of the CDO would be a separate effort also required. That's it from me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Oral reports on activities of county, cities, other agencies. I must be, that's where I just was. Sorry, yeah. So, public, does public want to make comments about any of this? No? Thank you. Now we are to item number 6, the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 195, adding rule 19.9 for informal bidding procedures.
Hello, sorry, there.
Maureen, yes, I'm wearing many hats.
Well, I'll give my introductions and I'm here to ask the board to consider the second reading and adoption of ordinance 195, adding rule 19.9 to provide informal bidding procedures under the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. And I have a little background that I'll try to get through as quickly as possible. All right. The act is documented in Public Contract Code. It was enacted in 1983. There are over 1,600 agencies participating in the state. Of those 1,600 agencies, 430, over 430 are special districts, and there are 25 participating local agencies in the county of Monterey. MPWMD opted into the act by resolution 2024-04, which was adopted in April. Thank you, Sarah. The act has really two important sections on informal bidding. The first is that informal bidding is allowed up to a specific dollar limit, which is currently set at $200,000. The second is that every public agency opting into the act needs to create their own ordinance describing the informal bidding practices and procedures. Next step. The requirements for every local agency's informal bidding ordinance is that bid notification be given via construction trade journals, which are determined by the state on a county basis. That's not unusual. We at the district have done that since I've been here. We can also use a contractors list, which is created and maintained by the district. That contractors list is organized by category of work. So we're not noticing a concrete job to well drillers. They want to make sure the notices get to the appropriate folks and not ignored. The list of contractors for that specific type of work, all contractors are notified in that area unless the product or service is proprietary. The notice must be mailed at least 10 days in advance of the bid due date. The notice has to include a basic job description where contractors can find detailed information about the job, as well as the bid due date and place. Now, these next two items are not prescriptive. They're here to allow the board flexibility should you choose to opt in. The first is that the board may delegate authority to award an informally bid contract. And the second is that the board may elect to award a contract for greater than that informal bid specified limit of 200,000, which that higher limit is currently $212,500. That's done in case the bids come in a little high. You're not wasting another X number of days to go out and renotice. The board has that option to do that by 4/5 vote. And then a clause I noted in the staff note that applies here, but not necessarily to the ordinance or requesting be enacted, is in regard to emergency procedures. Director Eisenhart, as a doctor and a lawyer, had raised the question on the difference in emergency contracting procedures between the district's code and the Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act. Both the district's public contracting code and the PCC that describes, that sets forth the requirements of the act point to the same piece of public contracting code for emergency contracting procedures. So there should be no change in how we do emergency contracting work when we opted into this back in April. So really the only new component with the act is this contractors list. And next slide, please. I added a slide for the public and the board that comes from the Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act's policy manual. And they give guidance that the trade journal is used to create the list. We solicit contractors via the trade journals to submit required information. The required information is fairly simple. It's the contractor's license, their contact information, and the type of work they're interested in. Anyone who supplies the required information is included on our contractors list. Additions to the list can be made at any time, and the list is updated at least annually by placing another invitation in trade journals to join our list. Slide. So my recommendation is that the board approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance 195, adding rule 19.9 to provide informal bidding procedures under the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. Are there any questions? Yes.
Is there a cost for the contractors to join our list?
There is no cost.
And has everybody, when they look at this, the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, do they call it cupcake?
We'll ask the CFO.
That would make it easier.
I don't know. I wish they did.
I have a question.
Yes.
You're going through the details, you say the may delegate authority to award. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, by the 4/5 vote. Are those two items addressed in the first reading?
Yes, they are.
So they're both included in the delegated authorities to the GM, I'm assuming as a reminder.
They give a list of options that will be up to the board. It says the GM, the CFO, and the district
Well, the
engineer.
professional staff is what
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Oh, yes,
get
yes.
to. Okay. Okay, then
Okay.
my question is answered.
Those covered my questions as well, so that means if we're going to have a motion.
I just want to make one
Go ahead.
comment through the chair.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions either. I mean, this is what we discussed obviously at the last meeting, and you did address the one, I guess, concern I had about the implications of what an emergency is and when it's invoked. So I think we're there. Move to adopt.
Madam Chair, we should take that to public comment first.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
I would second the motion and also to just remind everyone that the admin committee also went over this before it came to the full board. So we were both on that discussion as well. So there's it's been a good discussion, I think, of this. And it was initiated by the professional staff here. There's no requirement to do it and so on. It's just good management. And I remember trying to chase down in some way, why are we doing this? What's the cause for doing this? Best management practices. So I just want to remind everybody that. And thank you. Chief.
So may I have a motion? There are no more
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
There's a motion and a second.
You have a motion and a
Oh, we
second. We
already
can
did
do
it?
roll call voting.
Yeah,
What, right past me? Okay.
I'll take
Um,
roll call vote.
we can
Director Oglesby? Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Eisenhart?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Yes,
Director Edwards?
Aye.
Vice Chair Riley?
Aye.
Chair Anderson?
Yes,
Ordinance is adopted 7-0.
thank you for your presentation. Maureen? Okay, so. Yeah. Now we are going to consider the adoption of the October through December quarterly water supply strategy and budget.
And we should have the Water Resources Manager, Mr. Lear.
Yes, good evening, Chair Anderson, Board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Before we go into this, I wanted to just point out to everybody that even though we didn't get the GM report, all of the information that is presented in the GM report is in the informational item that I prepare for you every month. It's item 16. So if you're looking for that information for yourself, you can find it there. Okay, and with that, we can start public hearing, item number 7, which is consider adoption of the October through December 2024 quarterly water budget. This is the first quarter of what will be water year 2025. And so the water years, just to remind myself and everybody, are named for the years that have the most months in it. So it'll have most months in 2025. And so that's why it's called water year 2025. So next slide, please. When we develop the first quarter, we don't really know what type of winter we're going to have. So the first quarter is to come up with the demand that we've seen in the past and the supplies that we have around, and then look at some NOAA and climate prediction models to see what type of water year we think we may have. And this, if you read this map, it says in our area, we're just at equal chances going to possibly slightly below. And that is consistent with the ocean temperatures and NOAA declaring that this year possible a La Nina year. So may translate to slightly less precipitation. Next slide, please. The quarterly water budget, it considers a number of state board orders, which is obviously the order 9510, and the rest of these different types of orders that describe how water is to be produced out of the groundwater system. These are all focused on the river. And then also we take into account Rule 160 for the districts, which will state in the next public hearing that out of the river, there are 3,376 acre feet available to use throughout the entire year. For ASR, we have just over 3,670 acre feet in storage, which is about, based on the supply and demand forecast that general manager created, is 3 years of water for the ASR program banked starting this year should we need to turn to it in a drought. We're going to hold off and see if we need to use it in the summer. So that would be later quarterly water budgets for this water year. And as Maureen stated, if we get the required rainfall and we get stream flow requirements, and we meet those as required by our water rights in December, which is the last month of this first quarter of the water year, we'll move into injection. The table 13 water right is also a water right that allows you to start removing water off the river to meet demand in the Carmel Valley and the Carmel areas. And that is allowed in December. So if we do meet those flow requirements, we'll start utilizing that water right as well. And the pure water Monterey operations are the remainder of the water supply to be used to meet demand for this quarter. And the quarterly water group decided to continue to recover pure water Monterey at the rate it was injected over Q1 for the water year 2025. So next slide, please. We also have a bunch of different, or some philosophies that we try to use as we build these. We want to use all of the native water as well as all of the water out of the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer, and then supplement the rest of the demand using our water supply projects. And that it can be done by assigning the production out of those sources, as well as in supplementing the rest of the required supply out of pure water Monterey. This budget that I'm about to show you was developed September 9th by the Quarterly Water Budget Group, which is us as a district, California American Water, Fish and Wildlife, and NOAA Fisheries, as well as the Water Rights Board and the State Water Resources Control Board. Next slide, Sarah. Thank you. So what this looks like is in October, November, and December, the goal would be to remove 250, 230, and 230 acre feet from the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer. These numbers are lower because due to one of the state board orders, we're only allowed to use the lower valley wells until the flow comes up. Then we can start utilizing the upper valley wells. And once that happens, you'll see these numbers in the river go up in response to compliance with that rule. We have the goal to inject 330 acre feet for pure water Monterey into the Seaside Basin for all 3 months of this quarter. And then the remainder of the water that's going to go to meet demand will come out of the coastal sub areas. So that's why they don't, those areas, as the demand decreases as we go into December, so does the value of the coastal sub areas as it's making up the remainder of the difference. And I can pause here for any questions about the technical aspects of it, because the last slide is just a recommendation to adopt it. So if there are any questions, I could take those. Great.
John, one question.
Yes.
Unless I'm looking at this incorrectly, it seems like the coastal sub areas are going backwards. I mean, wouldn't they start lower and then grow as it starts raining?
The coastal sub area, that what you're seeing there with those numbers decreasing throughout the months is the overall decrease in demand on the system. So as you keep the river at 230 and you keep the pure water Monterey at 330, then as the demand falls, the need for the coastal sub area water decreases.
Thank you. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, great. Next slide, please, Sarah. And so the recommendation from staff is, should the board accept this to adopt this budget for the first quarter of water year 2025, and staff will then go and file a CEQA action with the Monterey County. And that concludes my presentation.
Any discussion? Questions? I don't hear any or see any. How about comments from the public? Okay, thank you.
I see no raised hands, Chair Anderson.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve staff's report.
All right, let's have a vote.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Eisenhart,
Aye.
Director Oglesby, Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Aye.
Vice Chair Riley,
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Through the chair, while we have Mr. Lear, can I just ask one question about the general manager's report, which is item 16 that he referenced? Is that within the?
It's later on the agenda for comment unless it's timely.
It's just sort of a timing thing. So
Is he
are
here?
you, John, are you leaving us, or can I ask you a question about the?
You can ask me a question, and public hearing item 8 is also my item. So
Okay, it's just, let me just jump in. I'll throw it out there. It's on exhibit 16B. I don't know if you have that in front of you.
pulling it. Yep, I do.
And I'm just feeling like I'm having a mental block here, but I'm looking at the production versus CDO and adjudication to date. You looking at that chart on the top of the page?
Yes, I see it.
Could you just help me understand when we compare water year 24 with water year 23, and we see the differences in actuals? Maybe is that something that you could sort of walk through just generally? I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, from the high level, the target dates, what we see for targets, I think it's exhibit B, Sarah, is what we're talking about. Thank you. The targets are the sum of the quarterly water budgets that we agree to. So as we march through the year, we are summing up the actual. So it accumulates what you thought you were going to do at the beginning of that quarter, whether or not that came to fruition, different. So that's why your actual and target would look a little bit different. And the 2023 actual was the year where there was about 800 acre feet of ASR water removed and about that same amount left in the river. And so there was actually an improvement in better use of the water rights with, one more month in water year 24 remaining to actually recover against the full water right in the river. So
That's what I thought. And I remember that. Okay, thanks. That answers my question. It was the discrepancy in the actuals between water year 23 and 24 that I wanted to get some clarification on. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, you want to. Are we on 8 now?
Yeah, I can take 8. This is a public hearing item, and it is a public hearing, which is a modifying the district rule 160. So this is a modification that we do whenever there's a change in the adjudication or the CDO that is going to change the amount of water that's available from those sources. So as we move forward, this actually ties directly to the quarterly water budget process that we just went through. We have legal water in the district that is from the source of the Seaside Native Water, and then the CDO and the Carmel Valley Alluvial Aquifer. We obviously don't have enough between these two sources, but what this does is it goes through and kind of lines out what we know we have from these sources, gives us of what we need from our water projects to meet what is our forecasted system demand. So this was a rule that came around when there weren't water projects, so the numbers used to match the demand, but now that we have had the reduce in our legal sources has forced us to move over to the hybrid system of also getting water from our water projects. And so Rule 160 specifies the regulatory water that we have, and it ties in to the expanded water conservation and standby rationing plan. So should we start also going past our Rule 160 targets, we'll start triggering rationing when that mechanism is to bring the production out of the legal sources down through the process of rationing. And it's done, this Rule 160 is enacted through a series of tables that go through and outline the the different areas and what water we have from those. And this requires a board action to modify these tables. So if we can go to the next slide. And so the CDO, these are the dates of the CDO and the adjudication. And then we had Pure Water Monterey come on in 2021, and we will use that project in water year 2025 to make up the difference between the limits we set on the legal sources and what we think forecasted demand will be. So next slide, please, Sarah. We have 3376 out of the river. We have 1,474 out of the coastal sub areas. There will be some production out of the Laguna Seca sub area because the Hidden Hill system does not have an intertie to the main system, and that pumping is handled at the water master. It's a ministerial process. It's handled that the water is something that we know is going to occur, but legally we have 0 set for the Laguna Seca sub area. And when you put those all together, we have 4,850. And as we all know, our annual demand is more around 9,000 for the main system. And so next slide. We take a breakdown of percentages by months, and then just multiply that out by what we have, and that is what's listed in the rule and the process of how to create the tables following the rule. So next slide, please. When you take the total we have, we want to be following using those percentage, we want to be following producing water that's not out of a water supply project at this rate in order to have it and to have it available for the following quarterly water budgets and to not trigger rationing. And then the next table is on the next slide, and it is breaking it down by the river. And then the next slide is breaking the next slide actually did not make it in, but it will break it down by the adjudication. But the main slide, the main table to pay attention to is the first table, which is the combination of all of the legal water that we have. And so we can go to the next slide after this. Go. And so the recommendation would be to codify the legal amount of water that we have through modifying this table. And then staff will take and modify these tables in the rule. And then that also will require a notice of exemption CEQA filing at the county. And concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
John, I have a request for you. Would you just please go back to clarify the CalAm regulatory production targets, Monterey Peninsula Water Resource System. It's couple slides back, and just remind us or me what all that is. So like a monthly target of 443 at the top for October.
Monthly target of 443 is taking the historic percent of water that is total water that is consumed in the main system. So it's the demand in the main system by percent. And then this is saying if we have a total of 4,850 acre feet of legal water, by percentage, we shouldn't be using more than 443 acre feet of that in October. And then we keep a running total. And these are guidelines, so we want to watch them. But the mechanism of the rule was set up when there weren't water projects in this area. And it was so you didn't get ahead of your production, and then you would run out of water. And that's why it's tied to trigger rationing if you get ahead of this production rate. These are to keep us within our budget, basically. And so that's it. They're guidelines to watch if you're really overproducing these. And so we watch these along with Stephanie Locke's division and use them in that fashion. And I don't know if I got anywhere close to your question.
Well, so I when you have the water years from 2013 to 2018, you're basically, you used all those 6 years of data and averaged them, and that's how you came up with a percentage that you want to stick with pretty much for each month. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
I have one question too.
Sure.
John, this will last for a year. The only thing that might change it is if we head toward a drought. Is that fair?
This is your water with or without a drought. If we head for a drought and say the water levels fall in the river, and now we can't use the upper wells, now we can't get as much water out of the river as we would want to. We would need to pivot and take some water out of ASR in order to meet the demand that we physically couldn't get out of the upper valley wells because they're not allowed to be used in a drought. So it's kind of, it would cause other operational problems. For example, when we didn't, in the question that just arose about previous water year when we didn't get all the water out of the river, that was due to it being a wet year and having a lot of ASR being injected. So the water that was being pumped out of the valley during the winter went against the ASR water right and not against the CDO water right. And therefore, when we got into the summer and we had to shut off the upper valley wells, there wasn't capacity to get the water out of the valley.
I'm fine. Thank you.
To the chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. John, On page 7 of this, the 3,376. If CalAm do not use all of that, can that go to another source?
No, it doesn't carry over.
It
Is that
doesn't
your
carry
question?
over.
It does not
So-
carry over.
Okay, so our best bet is to make sure that they use all that.
It's to try to stay on this schedule, and as we saw, there's a plan because the water levels are the flow in the river's low right now, that there's the plan for the quarterly water budget is a little bit less than these monthly targets going through. So we need to be tracked against this, and then have it padded later when the flows go up in the river, to try to remove all of this water right. There was much better understanding and planning that went into this water year, I would say, as water year 2023. That's why we're going to be so much closer. So we are talking, that is a topic of discussion during our quarterly water budgets.
Right. And it's a big one because that's the cheaper water. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, I have a motion.
Now we need to take out for the public first.
Yes, thank you. I need you here. Any comments from public or questions?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Thank you.
I move approval.
I'll second. Go ahead, Supervisor. Give it
I'll
to.
second. All right, let's take a vote.
Director Oglesby,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Eisenhart,
Aye.
Director Paul,
Yes,
Director Edward,
Yes,
Vice Chair Riley,
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
So we are at informational items, staff reports, and if there are any. Yes,
I have a comment on one of them.
okay.
I do too.
Stephanie, are you there? Hey.
I am here.
Did you have an opportunity to read this letter from Dakota Birch that was submitted?
Regarding the gray water and rainwater?
Yes.
Yes, and I would suggest we bring that up at our next water demand committee meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a thoughtful letter. I don't.
It was a thoughtful letter, but there were very distinct reasons that we, the board staff, recommended not giving credit.
Right.
Although we do offer rebates.
Right. And I think this was just before my time, so I wasn't there at the time, so I know I would be speaking 100% out of school, but your comments already helped me to start putting some context in it.
Yeah, I'd be
And-
happy to bring it up and we can just go over it real quickly at water demand next time.
Perfect. That was my only comment.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
My question was similar. What committee should consider this? Because I thought the arguments were interesting and maybe there's some preventive in addition to conservation efforts that maybe individuals might want to pursue. And their interest in this may rise to the level of being significant, but I don't know. And I'm just glad to see it's going to a committee discussion. Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
would just say, for the chair, I'd like to hear back about what comes out of it. I mean, it's a letter to the board, so we should understand what you guys' decision is on why some of those ideas are not good or where it could be helpful.
Good point. So we can have it brought to the board and explain to the board. And listen to Stephanie present it.
Yeah, and I actually believe the board did take action on this, so it would, I'll be happy to bring it back as an informational item.
Thank you. Anything else?
The informational items. What other? No, except just to say, is my last sort of call, item number 15. I don't know why I find that very interesting, but I really do appreciate reading those. Corey Hamilton, I guess, is the one that put this report together. I do read them and I appreciate them. I'm not sure if anybody else is here on those, but just want to.
I'm interested in them too, and I
Looks
just
like
read
Thomas is
an
here.
article on see, what's the word I'm looking for? Fish that are predators that are not. Pardon?
Non-native?
Yeah, non-native, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
That are non-native, and what a problem it is in some places in California, huge problem. Eating salmon.
We all love salmon.
Bass mostly were the predator that I was reading about just the other day in I think it was an Aqua
Yeah.
newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, that was my only comment on the informational items. Thank you.
There are no other comments. Then,
Madam Chair, we do have one closed session that we'll be going
Yes.
into, and I recommend taking public comment on that item before we adjourn the closed session.
okay. So, public comment on the.
This is the item Monterey Parish Taxpayers Association
Okay.
versus the district, Superior Court number 21 CB 003066, Sixth Court District of the Court of Appeal, case number H051128. Take public comment on that now.
Okay, do we have any?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised
Okay,
hands.
thank you. All right, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Adjourn to closed session, moving to closed session. Whichever.
Could just give me a minute to lock the meeting and have the public leave.